The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count, the show for college football fans that don't love Mondays, but they love college football games being played on Mondays. Don't love national title games being played on a Monday, but they still like starting their week with a college football game. As always, now presented by BetMGM. We told y'all, man, the BetMGM folks are taking care of us. A little parlay boost token. So if you like more than one thing within this national title game, when it comes to what you might be putting your money on, go ahead and put those things together. Use the Parlay Boost token. Get yourself a prettier payout. It is Thursday, January 15th, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. This is the last show that we will be doing within the confines of our Nashville studios. The next time you see the boys in real time, it'll be on location in Miami. Maybe, just maybe, a little bit of a suntan going, maybe a post-Cuban sandwich, okay? So send Miami Rex, too. That's important as well. If you have a place in Miami, the boys need to hit social media, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. Get at me on there. Let me know the spots, okay? We are looking to ingratiate ourselves. First time ingratiate's been said on the show. Into the Miami scene, if you will. We got a lot to unpack today. We got college football, national title. I almost said playoff. The last game of the college football playoff. National title predictions at the end of today's show. Our very own Caden Smith. You know Miss Cato, though, if you're regular on the show. Cato calling his shot and going to be telling you who he thinks is going to win the game, as well as a couple of predictions within the game itself from your boy. But let's start in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where the players play. One player that will not be playing there next season is Ty Simpson. Now, he had already declared for the NFL draft, but we said this on the show. And it ended up being the case. A couple of different schools like, hey, Ty, like, you can go pro, and that'd be great, but you can come back to school, come play for us here at Miami, make north of $4 million. Tennessee did the same thing. Ole Miss did the same thing. And Ty Simpson, now there's a great article out on on3.com by Chris Lowe, sort of breaking down the entire decision-making process from A1 Ty Simpson to ultimately stick with the decision to go pro. And, at one point in time, I was supposed to go duck hunting. He's like, nah, I can't do it. Can't shoot, got a knot in my stomach, not sure what to do. But even with that being the case, he's not going to be at Bama or Miami or Tennessee or Ole Miss. So we look back at Tuscaloosa and who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Crimson Tide next season. As it looks right now, could have yourselves a good old-fashioned quarterback duel through spring ball and assuming fall camp between Austin Mack, the Washington transfer, and Keelan Russell, 5-star true freshman from last season, no real burn this year. And, you got two good options for my money. Neither one of those guys would be in Tuscaloosa currently if they didn't think, one, they could compete for that job, or two, Kalen DeBoer didn't think they could compete for that job. So make that very clear. Both very talented individuals. But here's my question right in line with whoever's going to be your starting quarterback. What are you going to ask of them? Because if you're asking the Ty Simpson model, my answer differs from if you're going to support them. Because Ty Simpson last year put the entire Alabama football team on his back. And if you watched Alabama football this year, it was very similar to the end of the Grinch where he lifts the sleigh over his head to save Christmas. That was Ty Simpson this year. He lifted the entire Alabama offense, the entire Alabama team over his head to will them to the college football playoff. Now, defense showed up at different points in times, but that run game never really showed up. Bottom 20 in all of college football, and Ty Simpson said, no problem. We got to get to the playoff. I'm going to will us there. So if that's the same formula next season, that's asking a lot of Keelan Russell or Austin Mack, which by nature of this conversation, what I'm saying to Kalen DeBoer and the entire powers that be in Tuscaloosa, let's go to work in the portal here, baby. Let's go get some big boys up front. Let's go add ourselves another running back in that room to help that run game be a little bit more dynamic next season so we don't have to just drop back and throw it 30-plus times to be able to win football games. So if you're telling me it's going to be the Ty Simpson model, you almost start to lean towards the more college comfortable option, which in my mind would be the guy that's been in Ryan Grubb's system now here going on year 3, the guy who's 6'6", 235, can move a little bit, the guy who played, I thought, reasonably well in relief of Ty Simpson in garbage time in that Rose Bowl. I think Austin Mack would make some sense. Now, here's the other thought, though. If you're Alabama, do you really want to go with Austin Mack? Because if you play Austin Mack, that probably means that Keelan Russell is at least considering the option of no longer staying at Alabama. And I mean, Keelan Russell, from what he was as a prospect, I think everyone and their mama understood Keelan Russell is the future of Alabama football. I mean, heck, going into this past offseason, talking about what was going on during spring ball, there were still murmurs of like, hey, Keelan Russell now, if he puts it together, he may be a guy that pushes for this job as we get into the season. Again, those were early thoughts during like fall camp and spring ball and all those things, but Ty Simpson obviously had a hold of the job and never really let up. I think that if you can support Keelan Russell, that would be the desire of the Alabama football team, is to play the guy with the highest ceiling, the most upside, all those things. But I feel a lot better about playing the guy who's been in a system longer and who has, maybe more, just on paper here, 6'6", 235, like lends itself to maybe a touch more, quote unquote, durability, or I can call more for him in the run game. Now, it should be noted too, Keelan Russell's not a statue back there, for those that aren't familiar with his game. Out of high school, our comp for him was Jaden Daniels, the scouting department here at On3 that's now, I guess, more or less under the Rivals umbrella. He can move and wiggle a little bit. But again, you probably call more design quarterback run game for the guy that's 6'6", 235. So I say all this to almost get to this larger conversation about Bama football. Whoever you play, it's always pressure in Tuscaloosa, but like this year for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama feels very much so like a fork in the road kind of year. Very much a what are we really kind of year. Like you can go on a couple of dates and you can have some good conversations. It's all low stakes. It's emojis. It's back and forth inside jokes. But when you get a little bit longer, into the process of dating, when you get to like that third date, I'll say, at a third date, you kind of figure out who you are. Hey, this is fun. What are we really right now? Is this something we can put a label on and move forward into like a true relationship? We're building towards something, or is this just kind of a thing that happened and it was good for a couple of dates? It was fun to make the playoff and make the SEC championship game and all those things, but like it's not going to be really what either of us are looking for here. Now, that's not me saying if they don't make the playoff, Kalen DeBoer is fired. Do not misunderstand me at all. But I am saying you can't go 8-4. You can't miss the playoff and have that be the book on Kalen DeBoer in 3 years in Tuscaloosa. 2 out of the 3 years you missed the playoff. Like that's not going to be a good situation to live in. And that in itself opens up Pandora's box in terms of what the future looks like in Tuscaloosa. So I think it's very fair now if you're a Bama fan to look at what's going on in the transfer portal and be like, hey, I don't like what I'm seeing. Ty Simpson's gone to the league. We lost Isaiah Horton to the portal. We lost James Smith and Quay Russaw to a team that we would probably have to see at some point in time in the college football playoff if we want to go win a national championship in Ohio State. We had Dalen Smothers in the boat, and then he got flipped away from us to Texas, a team in the conference. Like, JD, I'm looking at the portal math here. I like the Ty Haywood ad. Cool. I like the Noah Rogers ad. Cool. But, like, portal math here suggests that Bama as a roster at the time of us taping this now is starting to, I don't want to say hemorrhage talent, but at the very least, maybe leak a little bit of roster talent from what they were to this upcoming season. Also, Jeremy Bernard gone to the league. So, I understand all that, and I hear all that, and I agree with all that. Right now, I do not have a good vibe around Alabama football. At the exact same time, it's January. It's January. At this point a year ago, we didn't know a thing about Ty Simpson. Same thing right now. We don't really know all that much about Austin Mack or Keelan Russell or what they have internally in some of those guys that maybe weren't playing last year that get developed or whatever else they're going to do via the transfer portal. All I'm going to say is I'm going to hold my opinion on Alabama until the very last second. I want as much information as humanly possible. I'm scouring the message boards at Bama Online. I'm checking the practice reports from Charlie Potter. I'm connecting with Tim Watts, the godfather of Alabama sports media when it comes to covering the Crimson Tide in terms of the football. Like I am doing everything I can to get all my intel because when it comes to this football team, I still think there has to be something said for Kalen DeBoer being your head coach. And as much as you want to say Kalen DeBoer is this and he's that, like he's made the playoff here with 2 different teams. I believe he is
don't quote me on this, I think he's the only team in the playoff era, or the only coach, rather, to win a playoff game with more than one team. He won one game in the playoff with Washington. He won a game with Alabama here in this most recent playoff. I think we need to make sure we're giving him his flowers. Now, as much as the roster concerns you, you still got to look at the guy who's, essentially running this team and who's putting the roster together. And Kalen DeBoer, I have to believe, is pretty hands-on in that regard. So, if nothing else right now, it is a blind level of confidence in how Kalen DeBoer is putting this football team together. I think his standard is still incredibly high. I don't think he's in over his head. I don't think he is misunderstanding the job that he took in Tuscaloosa. Make no mistake, Kalen DeBoer knew he was running towards a job now with goat-sized shoes he was having to fill. It wasn't going to be a situation where he walked in and go win 9 games and it's all well and good. He understood that. He knows last year wasn't good enough. I think he knows this year wasn't good enough. I don't think he's out there just with his head in the clouds and happy to be at Bama. And I think he's got a good gauge for what the expectation is. So with that being the case, I trust Kalen DeBoer to make some moves in accordance with that expectation. All right, so we'll see what happens with Bama. Looks like right now they'll have a quarterback battle in spring football moving forward. I think they'd like to play Keelan Russell, but if you have to play Austin Mack, it's a pressure-packed year. It's a fork-in-the-road kind of year. And we will, I guess, wait and see and watch how that evolves here going forward in Tuscaloosa. So exciting times out there, just if you're a college football fan in general, and maybe, dare I say, anxiety times in Tuscaloosa if you're a Bama fan. I'll stay in the SEC. I'll stay in the quarterback lane. Tennessee has been in the portal quarterback market here over the course of the last couple of weeks. Took a swing on Sam Leavitt. Obviously, Sam Leavitt ends up at LSU. Hosted Bo Prabula for a visit, the Missouri transfer quarterback, and now he ends up at Virginia. So if you're a Tennessee fan, I think it's fair to watch what's going on in the transfer portal and watch maybe who you haven't landed and say, don't love that. Do not love that. Who's going to be our guy next year? Now, I'll say this. I still believe that Tennessee will go to the portal and land somebody, whether it's high profile or not. Heck, by the time you're watching this, by the time the show comes out, maybe Tennessee's already gotten somebody. I don't know. And I want to make sure I don't sugarcoat this. It is very fair to say there's a question mark at quarterback right now in Tennessee. You got George McIntyre, who was the high-profile true freshman. Outside of that, you got a true freshman quarterback in Faison Brandon, who you're going after, or who you are trying to, I think, bring along. Both those guys have no real college experience at this point in time, especially your soon-to-be true freshman quarterback. I'm not sugarcoating this or hope dealing this. It's something you got to watch here. It's something to be concerned about. But as much as it's fair to be concerned, where I fall in this issue is I just kind of trust Josh Heupel. Whether that's right or wrong, I just kind of trust Josh Heupel. The reason why, he's a quarterback whisperer. It's been proven from what he did with Hendon Hooker, who came over from Virginia Tech without a lot of fanfare or accolades behind him. Joe Milton, say what you want about him. I think you got the absolute most you could out of Joe Milton. Nico Iamaleava and all the things he was supposed to be at Tennessee, his first year starting, he wasn't that great. Not to knock Nico, but let's be honest, I think you were underwhelmed with what you got from him versus what you were advertised to get from him. And you won 10 games and made the college football playoff. JD, that was the defense. Yeah, the defense showed up big. Who do you think was in charge of helping get that defense assembled? Who do you think was in charge of the staff that put that defense in place? Josh Heupel. So going back to the quarterback whisper part of this, I think that what we saw last year should be weighted pretty heavily because Joey Aguilar, now we've said it many a time, he shows up in Knoxville from UCLA after not playing a snap at UCLA because he was there for spring football, and then he's like, hey, well, Nico's coming here. I guess I got to find somewhere else to play. The first ever quarterback trade happens in college football. He goes to Knoxville. Before that, he was playing G5 football at App State. Now, shout out App State, our very own Kane Smith, proud rep, proud alum here, all right? Put that on everything we love and hold dear. But understand, he'd never played a snap of Power 4 football or SEC football. And you miss spring ball, and Josh Heupel brings him in and makes him the leading passer in the SEC. We should not dismiss that. So even if you're not super excited about whoever Tennessee lands, you didn't land Leavitt, you didn't land Prabula, I'm still saying, you know what? I trust the guy who played quarterback at a super high level, who's had a lot of high-level quarterback play for him, and who's made it work too now, quite frankly, without high-level quarterback play. I trust Josh Heupel, man. I trust Josh Heupel. Also, we got to trust the system a little bit here too. We talk about Josh Heupel's offense, those wide splits, light box look, you're going to run the football. It's not going to be this situation where you got to go grab this NFL arm to make it all go. Like, you got a guy with the certain, football personality of, I'm going to let it loose a little bit here. I'm going to trust my guys, and I'm going to push the football downfield. If you have that in place and you can do that somewhat consistently, that's what Joey Aguilar did, right? I know Tennessee fans, you pull your hair out a little bit because of the games where he made some boneheaded mistakes, most notably the Oklahoma game. But I think with what you got from Joey Aguilar, it's hard to be disappointed in that. And I think a lot of that should be attributed to Josh Heupel and his ability to bring him up to speed with no spring ball, your most important practice time of the year, where you're installing and getting the chemistry and all those things in place for fall camp, where you're hitting the ground running. Josh Heupel is the reality TV show chef of college football. Like, you ever watch any of those bizarre shows that are about cooking, where it's like they give them random ingredients and you just got to make it work in like a matter of an hour and a half? Josh Heupel, you got beef liver and Pop-Tarts. Give us a Michelin star meal. Essentially what he had last year with Joey Aguilar and a bunch of different pieces in place. I mean, won 8 football games. And again, the offense wasn't the problem last year. The part that Josh Heupel was in charge of most intimately wasn't the problem last year. Tennessee scored points in bunches. Josh Heupel is just going to make it work because you have that sample size, but you also have the Nico sample size, like I said a season ago, where the offense is struggling to score over 30, and it's not really the Josh Heupel brand of offense we're used to seeing when it comes to points. Okay, all good. The defense will find a way to get it done. And as an offense, we're going to call this thing differently, where we're not going to operate with the same level of breakneck pace. We're not going to try and push the football downfield maybe the way that we would if we had a quarterback we felt better about, or a receiver group we felt better about. All those things, I think, need to be mentioned with Josh Heupel. So just because they don't have their top guy they're going after in the portal, just because they didn't land Sam Leavitt, I'm still not panicking. If I'm a Tennessee fan. Like, also, too, the defense, you got to be better next year. That's very, very obvious. But Josh Heupel's willingness to pivot on the defensive side after you just had a top 5 defense the year before, hey, Tim Banks, give him an extension. Actually, after we just extended him, defense is bad, so, Coach, we appreciate you, but we got a certain standard we're trying to uphold here. And it's not just the lip service of we're firing our DC after he has a good year the year before. It's the willingness to go after a Jim Knowles, the willingness to go after a Chaz Coleman and pay the price that goes along with a Chaz Coleman at an NIL level. I trust the direction of it. So, yes, we still got to see it play out, and yes, there's still something to watch going into the season, but I'm trusting Josh Heupel to course correct on that side of the football as well. Schedule's not crazy next year, y'all, and it's crazy we're sitting here in January already talking about a team schedule in 2026, but look at what it is for Tennessee. No Georgia. Okay, you get Bama in Neyland. We just talked about Bama. No idea what they're going to be next year. You get Texas in Neyland, and you play, I believe, A&M towards the end of the year. Oklahoma. Again, I told you no Georgia is a nice situation. You're 10-2, you're in the playoff probably for Tennessee. I'm just saying, I'm not calling my shot right now, but I am just saying, you talk about Tennessee and the portal quarterback misses. You don't like it. There's no way to say it's a good thing. But I have a hard time getting too worked up as long as Josh Heupel is in charge over there and running the show in Knox Vegas. So we'll see what happens there with Tennessee. I'm assuming they're going to get a guy out of the portal, but regardless, I'm trusting Josh Heupel to right that ship offensively. All right, now speaking of righting ships, Notre Dame, end of the year just a weird way. Just a weird vibe in South Bend, man, because you finish the season, you're 10-2, and you think in South Bend, like, hey, we did enough to make the college football playoff. We were ranked in that playoff field when Reese Davis gave us the most recent breakdown. Okay, cool. We should be in a good spot here when Selection Sunday comes around. And then the committee is like, hey, we may have messed up with where we rank Miami the last couple of rankings. And Notre Dame, we're sorry. We've kind of been trying to right this course for a minute here, but listen, the system sucks. We messed up. Flipperoo on Selection Sunday. Heartbreak in South Bend. Miami's in the college football playoff. Now Miami made that flip look correct for the committee with them playing for a national championship. But my honest look here on Notre Dame, I think that vibes just don't really match the reality of where Notre Dame is. Because you have that Selection Sunday fiasco where you're a product of the sucky system, honestly, biting you and the committee in the unfortunate place of missing the college football playoff. But as the dust settles, you have that plus the missing the I'll say this, not missing, but rather you making the decision to miss your own bowl game and how that looked optically, where everyone, quote unquote, quits on the team and what have you. And again, we didn't like that personally. On this side of things, we wish they would have played. Think that's a bad look, all those things. But the vibe being in such a negative place around South Bend and around Notre Dame at a national level doesn't feel like it matches what's really actually happening when you look at the Notre Dame football team as a whole. Like, the reality is you went 10-2. You went 10-2. You lost 2 games by 1 score, both to college football playoff teams. A play here, a play there, it's different. And then you're in the college football playoff if one of those plays breaks differently. Notre Dame fans are still talking about the missed holding call against A&M and like, y'all, I hear you. I don't disagree by any stretch of the imagination. But what's being overlooked in my mind about Notre Dame is like, hey, what we said before the year was they have everything in place to go finish the trip from what happened last year. Everything in place. They got great roster talent. We feel good about the skill players. Feel great about the line of scrimmage. The question mark was, do they have a quarterback to make it all go? So we're tracking the battle during spring. Is it Minchie? Is it Carr? CJ Carr gets the job. And your boy was very, very loud about this. Hey, even though CJ Carr won the job, if he doesn't play well to start, I would not be shocked if they switched to Minchie progressing towards the rest of their season. And they never did. Why? Because CJ Carr was awesome this year, y'all. Like, CJ Carr was not the reason you didn't make the college football playoff. And so as much as it sucks to not make the playoff, knowing you got a quarterback to run this thing going forward, that's not being talked about enough at all. Like, CJ Carr now was top 25 in all of college football in touchdown passes to interception ratio. Top 10 in QBR. Like, CJ Carr is a dude now. His first year as the guy in South Bend. You got him coming back next year. Notre Dame's in a good place. And the thing with Notre Dame, too, to go along with the quarterback is like they have progressed in a spot now under Marcus Freeman at a talent level to where they're not going to be, for the foreseeable future here, in my mind, a team that needs the stars to align to go compete for a national championship. Like, you talk about window teams a lot. Ole Miss has been in this discussion before. I think you talk about different teams like A&M in this discussion before. I don't think that Notre Dame's a window team. Now, to be clear, I don't think A&M's a window team either now after what happened this season. But they have everything they need at a roster level to compete year in and year out so long as they have a quarterback. Like, they just landed a top 3 recruiting class in all of college football with 0 decommits. Right now, as we're taping this, they got a top 15 portal class. 2 5-star wide receivers in there with Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham, both coming from Ohio State to go catch patches for CJ Carr. They're always going to be a line of scrimmage football team as long as Marcus Freeman's your head coach there. Defense should always be in a great place as long as he's your head coach over there. So, like, the Jimmies and Joes part of this equation for Notre Dame, in previous years, for my money, feel like it was lacking a little bit for the Irish. I don't feel that way anymore. And I don't feel like it's going to be a thing for them going forward either as long as he's the head coach out there. So, with that being the case for the Irish, yeah, this year was weird and the ending just kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But as the dust settles and you zoom out what's actually happening there, they don't have to reset for next year. They don't have to do this whole rebuild, knock it down to the studs. Like, they have everything in place to run it back and go compete for a college football playoff berth and a national title here in 2026. Okay, now, I want to say this too. As much as that's the case, we would be foolish to not look at this year and use it as a learning tool for how we're assessing Notre Dame in 2026 and beyond through the lens of the College Football Playoff Committee. What did this year tell you, Irish fans? It told you there is 0 safety net. Well, JD, they went 10-2, and you're not them. You're not in the conference. Your schedule isn't maybe optically here what some people would like it to be. And that's not me telling you that's the case optically, because honestly, look at the strength of record here. Notre Dame's strength of record was actually better than Miami's. I digress. Head-to-head has to matter. I'm not disagreeing with the committee. I'm just saying you have to live with the understanding now that you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt because of your independence and because of the quote-unquote schedule strength that some people would like to see more of. Until we expand the college football playoff to past 12 teams, which I hope we don't do, but people keep talking about it. Until we do that, you have to make sure you leave 0 doubt in the regular season. Like, next year's schedule, took a peek at it. You got Miami, SMU, BYU. You can't afford to drop more than one of those. Full stop. Because you've seen this year, if you go 10-2, it does not guarantee you anything. Maybe it does for a Big Ten school, for an SEC school, and I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that is the rules to the game you're playing right now in South Bend. So you have to leave no doubt, lose ideally no games, but if it's one game, so be it, and you have to make sure that you go out and get respect in the college football playoff when you get there. Because understand this too. There's going to be the murmurs. Even if you make the playoff, even if you go undefeated, people are going to say, well, who have they played? Well, we didn't see them on conference title weekend. Well, there's going to be a lot of about Notre Dame. So when you get to that college football playoff, that's where you got to go take respect. And in that same vein now, you have to make sure that you are at a good spot competitively from an emotional standpoint to where you don't have this recalibration. You don't have this rest versus rust conversation. You got to be ready to go from the jump here. Right? Notre Dame cannot afford that. So I know it's kind of a weird time right now in South Bend. I know the whole not playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl rubbed a lot of us the wrong way, your boy included, but at the end of the day, the vibes around Notre Dame do not match the reality of what I think this team, this program here is capable of and going to accomplish under Marcus Freeman for the foreseeable future. So we'll keep a pulse on the Irish, man. A lot going on in South Bend, but I digress. We'll see how that whole thing progresses over the course of these next few months. Cannot wait for spring ball, man. Get some spring propaganda around Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter. Catching deep balls from C.J. Carr, going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. You know what else is a lot of fun? Watching Oklahoma just put the haters in a locker this past season, man. What did we learn about Oklahoma this season? My biggest takeaway after watching the Sooners make the college football playoff with arguably here the toughest schedule in college football is that they belong. Because what was being said in the preseason? You're walking around SEC Media Days in Atlanta and you're doing different radio hits, and different questions around Oklahoma would arise when it came to hot seat talk around Brent Venables. Hey, does he have to go win 9 games to keep his job? Hey, what if they win 6 games again? Are we sure he's the right guy? And I was always kind of like, let's just kind of hold this opinion loosely around Oklahoma because I think they're going to be pretty good this year. Now, did I think they make the playoff? Wasn't on my bingo card, but the fact that they did, I think it answered the question of like, no, Oklahoma belongs in the SEC, and Brent Venables belongs as a head coach in the SEC. We're not having that discussion anymore. And it felt like a little bit the SEC, not intentionally here, but just by nature of how it worked out, they had an opportunity to kind of initiate Oklahoma in some ways by the schedule they got. And I can't help but think about like the days that I had playing college football. It's not hazing, but like we would have a thing where freshmen during fall camp, you would do a introduction of sorts where it's like, hey, tell us where you went to school, tell us your favorite song, and hit us with a touchdown celebration. And it would be a very funny like thing to watch during that whole experience because you see different people, different freshmen who are just kind of uncomfortable in their own skin and kind of awkward and trying to not make a fool out of themselves. But the ones that were trying to not make a fool out of themselves were the ones that always were like booed, essentially. It's like, man, do something more than just spike the football for your celebration. The ones that would lean in, though, and be all the way about it and weren't afraid to be comfortable in their own skin and kind of lean into the whole experience, those were the ones that would thrive. Oklahoma, they leaned into this experience of being initiated by the SEC by having that toughest schedule in college football. They matched the energy of what was required for that schedule. What do we see from Oklahoma every single week? We'll get to the John Mateer part here in a second, but what we saw every single week was violence, was physicality, was aggression, was zero checking of their feet when it came to any matchup physically. That's what you had to have coming into the SEC. It wasn't, we'll try to reinvent the wheel, we'll think outside the box, you're going to have a different kind of scheme and have a different approach offensively. Brent Venables is like, no, you know what? I got to call the defense. That's fine. I'd probably rather just do head coach stuff, but if I got to call the defense for us to do this, that's fine because his energy as a DC is exactly what was required for Oklahoma to do what they did this season in that conference, which is, I think, the most violent conference in college football. A lot of discussion about the Big Ten and the SEC and who's this, who's that. Not here to do that. Talk about just violence. Talk about closing your eyes and hearing pads pop. I think that's the SEC. And that's not an SEC homer take. It's just the reality. So to go in line with that, we have double verified now that Brent Venables belongs as a head coach. He's not just a coordinator that got a whistle and a clipboard in a nice office. Like, no, he's legitimately a head coach for a number of reasons. There is the first part of this where some head coaches across college football and college football history, it's pretty easy to pick out like, oh, you were just carried by the talent you had on your roster. And like, this is not taking shots, but think about that Auburn team. Cam Newton's your quarterback. You're going to be more than fine. The LSU team, having Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, you're going to probably be okay in that regard. Now, what can you do when you don't have all the talent that you would like? Who are you when the engine goes out on the plane? Can you captain slowly this thing and land it on the river and find a way to win football games? Because that's what happened this year. Like John Mateer is crushing it the first half of the year. You get to the Texas game, and your team averages 22 points a game from there on out. That's coaching. You got to find ways to win. You got to find ways to boss up as a defense. You got to find ways to play in the margins as an offense. Oklahoma answered the call to action in a big way when it came to the test in front of them to find ways to win every single week. The other part of this for Brent Venables that I think deserves some credit is just think about the psychology of this Oklahoma team for a second. You lose to Ole Miss October 25th. Okay, October. Not November, October. So you're still staring down the barrel of playing Alabama, playing Tennessee at Tennessee. For good measure, you got to play LSU. And at that point in time, I think LSU was still viewed as somewhat frisky with who they had on the roster, is what it is. You got to find a way to win all of those games. Missouri as well, for good measure. Got to find a way to win all those games. If you lose one more game, you're out of the college football playoff. You're entering November in elimination mode if you're Oklahoma, off of a loss that, quite frankly, should be a little bit of a gut punch. Like, the offense was pretty anemic that day against Ole Miss. There was explosive plays, but that was the only thing you really had that resembled an offensive approach. Lane Kiffin had your number as a defense. It's a tough day. To take the team in that spot emotionally and to be able to create belief and rally the troops enough to go finish the season 10-2 and make the college football playoff and get a home game, Brent Venables is a head coach. That's a head coach thing. Like, coordinators and position coaches, those are guys you can give a lot of credit to the game plan of things. Not that you don't credit Brent Venables and himself in that sentiment as well. But like psychology of a team, I'm looking at who the head coach is. And the psychology of this team down the stretch was like, we don't care the score. We don't care the situation. We don't care where we're playing. Like, you're going to get every single ounce of what we have to offer. Here we go. And that was good enough to make the college football playoff. So as I zoom out on this year, going back to this idea of like Oklahoma belonging where they're at in the SEC and Brent Venables as head coach, I feel pretty good about the averages here going forward because there was a lot of extremes this year. Like, even if you think, JD, the defense won't be that good yet again in 2026, there's no way. Okay, what's the average of it? Maybe it's not like top 5 in college football, top 10 in college football, but are we like in the top 20? Averages would probably point to that. JD, the offense, like, it was anemic last year, dude. Yeah, because John Mateer got hurt and the run game sucked. Like, are we 100% sure that if we average out what the Oklahoma offense has been under Brent Venables and under Ben Arbuckle when he was at Washington State, are we sure the averages of that don't suggest something maybe like a little bit more to write home about? The schedule was crazy. The extremes of the schedule, I think that the averages of the schedules that Oklahoma will have here over the course of the next few years should be a lot more digestible than what you had this year. I have a hard time seeing Oklahoma legitimately, when the dust settles, have the toughest schedule in college football in back-to-back seasons now. Doesn't check out to me. So the discussion we've had about Oklahoma at a structural level, it's kind of been quieter and a little bit more of a murmur behind the scenes, but people have sort of alluded to this. I think there were very real questions early on, at least in the NIL era, of like, hey, how hard is Oklahoma willing to go here on the NIL front? And I still don't have all the exact answers there, but I know that you got John Mateer out there. I know there was other schools like Miami that wanted his services. I know you landed John Mateer. Okay, it's reported actually that John Mateer was right around $4 million over the course of 2 years to be at Oklahoma, so you're playing ball there, at least for your quarterback. If you're thinking about giving money to Oklahoma as a booster or a bigwig, whatever, if you're thinking about considering supporting Brent Venables financially, you now have something that makes you feel better about doing that. You have a college football playoff berth in your second year in the SEC with an elite defense and a quarterback that you got because you were willing to pony up a little bit here. Now, I get there's the Ben Arbuckle angle and you want to play with your coordinator, all that. Like, understand, John Mateer was not a free $99 price point to get to Norman. So you saw some commitment there financially. Now you got a college football playoff berth plus a GM who knows what NFL dudes look like in Jim Nagy, who we haven't even seen him really cook yet, just in my opinion, in terms of what he's going to do for that roster. You should feel a lot more peace about giving money to this outfit at Oklahoma. So I think there's a very real possibility that maybe we haven't even seen all the gasoline poured on the fire just yet, and this thing's just getting rolling at Oklahoma. So whatever happens next year happens, but understand, this year to me verifies Oklahoma, They are very much so belonging in the SEC with the brand of ball, the toughness, the physicality. And Brent Venables is not just a coordinator with a head coach name tag. Dude's a head coach. He proved that this year in how they made that run. All right. So, Cato, I want to get your take on this, man. Oklahoma, the year they had, it was all over the place. Like, I was ready to say they were dead in the water post Ole Miss because the offense was anemic. We're not sure about John Mateer and what he was going to be here going forward. Like, there's just a lot of question marks in October. And then they get to November. Then they become hard to kill. Then they go on that run that gets them to the college football playoff. Do you have any big takeaways about Oklahoma or Brent Venables in general coming out of this season than maybe what you thought when we were in Atlanta, SC Media Days, talking to Mateer and company?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we were big believers in John Mateer early, just talking to him, looking at his Washington State film, knowing he had the continuity of his offensive coordinator coming with him. We were big believers in that, and the fact that his thumb injury derailed that, and they were able to navigate through a schedule between them and Florida, we were talking about being the hardest schedule in college football. Brutal. I mean, they have to have so much confidence in themselves. I think there's two things. One, previous segment talked about Notre Dame, and I feel like with Notre Dame, we were talking before the year saying, hey, you have to go 1-1 in your first two games. Like, you have to split them. Like, if you're Notre Dame and we're looking at your schedule, unless Arkansas and Navy and USC turn into some juggernaut like Miami, A&M, 2-game season for y'all. Like, y'all have to split those. And they didn't make it happen, and then the rankings shook the way they shook, and they were outside the playoff. But let's not forget, before the season, we were saying y'all had to go 1-1 at least to have a chance at making the playoff. Oklahoma, we looked at their schedule and said, hey, if this team goes 9-3, we might have to let them in the playoff just because their schedule is so hard. So the fact that they were able to do that, just compared to Notre Dame with those two segments next to each other, can't help but think and just look back at how impressive it was for Oklahoma. And you pair last year's schedule and those injuries, what they have coming down the pipe this year, you have to imagine things are easier for them. And I feel like in the NFL especially, it kind of reminds me of what the 49ers are doing right now. Season from hell for the 49ers. Fred Warner's hurt. Joey Bosa's hurt. Like, they had so many different players get hurt, yet they were able to rally and just won a playoff game on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. Oklahoma, despite the injuries, no matter what was going on, despite their offensive run game not being able to get going, they leaned on their defense. They leaned on what they did best. John Mateer was able to grit his teeth and make some stuff happen. And next thing you know, this team's in the playoff and they win 10 games. So I think everything surrounding Oklahoma, I think it can only get easier from here as far as the uncontrollables. You can't control your schedule. You can't control your quarterback breaking his thumb. The uncontrollables can only get easier for Oklahoma, I imagine. So you're able to double down now, re-up, bring your quarterback back. I'm excited about this team, man. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people that have the confidence to leave them outside of the playoffs, seeing they were able to make it this year given those factors. So I think my confidence externally for them is only going up just given what they were able to do this year against Brent Venables. And I'm really curious to be on Sooner Scoop and listening to what those guys say as far as what the vibe is with this team, because they adopted that hard-to-kill mindset. And I think carrying that through the offseason, I'm just curious how their tone and how they look at themselves in the mirror changes, because I'm sure they're going to be having that playoff game in the back of their head all offseason, and they'll be really motivated. And I think that, plus the other little things getting easier for them, makes them an extremely, extremely dangerous team. So I'm excited about the Sooners team, man.
Brent Venables' defense, healthy Mateer. Those, like, that sums it up equation-wise. At that level, you should be in a good spot to at least be competitive in every single game.
Right.
If you get a run game to cherry on top, like, run game was a thing we were asking for all year long, Cato, outside of John Mateer, somebody else carry the football. If they have that and they can rely on that, all bets are off. And who wants to see Oklahoma with a run game in the college football playoff?
Nobody.
Like, I think it's very wagonish there very, very quickly. So we're in lockstep there when it comes to Oklahoma, man.
Yeah, I want to look up who they've got next year, because there's just no way they have to go through such a gauntlet that they did last year. I'm having trouble.
At Michigan.
Stuff,
I believe they're also at Georgia.
Okay.
Outside of that, like, you got Texas. I want to say, and don't quote me on this, I guess you're pulling up the schedule. I believe of the 5 teams that made the playoff last year from their conference, I want to say they only have to play 2. Okay? So Georgia's one of those, and I think I won't even guess the other one because I'll make myself look silly. But I know it's a schedule that will, at the very least, be more workable than what they had this year.
Yeah, I've got it up now. So going to Michigan and going to Georgia is not easy.
But still,
there's no way around that.
Yep.
The Cotton Bowl, no way around that. A&M, no way around that. Other than that, though, I think that's where the rest of their stuff opens up. You go to Missouri, you have Ole Miss, you have Florida with a new head coach, you have South Carolina, Mississippi State, Kentucky with a new head coach. So to me, like just the week-to-week grind, I mean, we were looking at their schedule last year, and there's a bunch of teams that were knocking on the door of the playoffs, 9-10-win teams. So I think it's going to be interesting to see because we were talking about it last year, like when the narrative flips. I forgot when exactly it was last year, but there was a point where the narrative flipped from Oklahoma where it was like, dang, their schedule's hard to, oh no, like you have to play Oklahoma. Like it's hard for you now. You look at your own schedule different now with Oklahoma being on it versus the way we were looking at Oklahoma's schedule. And I think they've earned that right now. Like I think given how last year was, and like I said, the disarray that was happening with the injuries and just the not being able to run the ball and just some of the deficiencies they had, you fix those little things, man, and all of a sudden that's one of the top teams. You're drafting one of the top teams you don't want to play in the SEC. And then I think that home field advantage will only get better the better they get. I think the care factor, as you mentioned, pouring into this. You talk about Jim Nagy now having a full offseason to scout, bring who he wants to bring in through the portal and continue developing. Man, continuity is almost slept on at this point, and I think in the SEC specifically, there's so much coaching turnover, so many changes going on across the conference. Being able to just run it back, I feel like is underrated, and being able to run it back with this group, moving with probably a different level of swagger. I'm excited for them, man. I'm really pumped for this Oklahoma team in the future.
Dude, Palace on the Prairie's got to be electric every single Saturday. I'll tell you what, narrative flip for me, that first drive against Michigan, where I saw Mateer throw a dot over the middle. It was with Kinnick over the linebacker in front of the safety. I was like, oh, that's what time we're on now, offensively, Oklahoma? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, that Michigan game.
It's like that.
I think that's what we talked about it before when we were talking about their matchup going into that game against Alabama. That is just like that was when we looked at them different. That's when we looked at John Mateer different. And I just can't wait for them to get back to that place. John Mateer, the thumb injury, he was clearly worse after that. And some of it, like we couldn't really differentiate what was him, or was his eyes, was it his thumb, like some of the interceptions.
Confidence.
Yeah, some of the interceptions, even he was running a little bit different. It was all so out of character compared to some of the stuff we saw in the Michigan game. I can't wait next season when we open things up to start the year. If he's looking like he did, throwing just seam honey hole shots just out of his own end zone, running people over, like this team made it to the playoff and they weren't even their full version of themselves. So next year, I think they're going to be playing some bully ball, and I'm really excited for what they've got going on in Norman, man.
There's Captain Sully, man. One engine goes out. We got to land on the Hudson River. We still find a way to make the playoff, get everyone off there safe. But we got both engines going now. Maybe we get to our final destination. But
humming, man, humming.
We'll see. It'll be good stuff, man. Cato, good stuff as always. Going to check back in with Cato here in a matter of moments to get his final college football playoff predictions. You get the whole seat. You only need the edge. Tell you that right now. All right, but speaking of Brent Venables, he came over from Clemson. And Clemson right now, I think they would love to have Brent Venables back on their staff calling that defense because y'all was a tough year out there in Clemson, South Carolina. I think it's fair to ask this question right now. How cooked is Clemson? You want to phrase it another way. Is Clemson cooked? Because here's my thing. It wasn't that Clemson went 7-6 last year. That was obviously a massive part of it. That sucks anytime you go 7-6 and you expect to make the college football playoff. But it was that you went 7-6 and you had every single box in the preseason checked. Number one returning production. Quarterback has played a lot of ball. Quarterback with an OC he's comfortable with. Team that just made the playoff last year. You feel good about what you have on defense. You think you maybe got the right guy now calling the defense in, Tom Allen. Kind of changed the temperature of that whole thing. At least that was how it read during fall camp. And then you fall flat on your face with the most first-round draft picks projected in the preseason, that is, in all college football. It wasn't that you go 7-6. It's that you had everything you needed to go win the national championship, and you went 7-6. And so the tough part for me is if it's not working with all those things in place this year, when is it ever going to be more teed up for Clemson to go do some big things in the college football playoff, win a national championship, win the conference itself? Like we talked about them going 7-6. You went 7-5 in the regular season. You didn't have to play 3 of the top 4 teams in the ACC, and the ACC was won by a team that went 7-5 this year in Duke. Like Clemson, help me out here. Help me out. I want to give this disclaimer as well on my whole, critiques of Clemson as we talk about where they are in the future and are they cooked. Like, I have a ton of respect and, quite frankly, admiration for the way that Dabo Swinney built that place. It was off of a focus on the person as well as the player. It was faith-based. It is a thing that's definitely like process-oriented. It's a, hey, you guys will do what you want to do across college football and talk about the portal and the way things are changing. I trust us and our way of doing things. We're going to go ahead and focus on that way that's worked so far. Here's the problem, though. It's not working the way that it was working. And as much as you love the way that it worked in previous eras where you're making the 14 playoff every year and you're winning national championships, a change in results should dictate a rethinking of your process. And everyone wants to get so on Dabo for the portal, and we've definitely had our fair share of takes in that department as well. Like, if Clemson goes heavily to the transfer portal over the course of the next couple of years, do things change? Maybe. I don't know, maybe. But I think my bigger gripe here is, like, why are we not getting more out of what we already have on this roster? Like, look at the last 3 recruiting classes for Clemson. 2022, ranked 14th. 2023, ranked 11th. 2024, ranked 14th. All top 3 in the ACC. So you're not having top 5 classes and top 10 classes, but all way better than what you got from a 7-6 record. Why are we not getting more out of Cade Klubnik his final year at Clemson? Why are we not getting more out of that defense, all the personnel we have on that side of the football? Like, that's my concern. It's not so much who you have on the roster. That doesn't seem to be the issue. It seems to be an issue of getting more out of what you have on that roster. So I believe this for forever, and I believe it more now than ever. Processes are perfectly designed to get the results that you are getting. So Clemson, I know you can say, well, it was just kind of a weird year in college football, and Cade wasn't who we thought he was going to be, and the skill. Like, say whatever you want to say, make whatever excuse you want to make. But what you got this year is due to, in my opinion now, the process that you have in place. And so I'm very much pro Dabo Swinney, but if we don't want to change the process, and I'm not saying that's roster acquisition, I'm not saying that's about the portal or not, I'm saying at every single level of your program now, if I'm Dabo Swinney, I have to go back and reinvent the wheel. I'm talking you dry erase the entire board and say we got to start from scratch. It shouldn't be about players at Clemson based on how you recruit. Maybe we got to change the way that we practice. Maybe we got to change the way that we evaluate. Maybe we got to change the way that we meet. Maybe we got to change the food in the cafeteria. I don't know what it is, but I am saying now your talent was way too solid to get the results that you had. And that's a no-dust statement. But if you're going to talk about is Clemson cooked here going forward, they will be cooked if they don't do something different. Full stop. If you don't change your process, you should not expect new results. And so Clemson can run it back and say, well, we just wasn't the right culture in place. We had the wrong leaders. Or we had the wrong this, that. Blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. I'm not giving you my own take. I'm telling you blame it on whatever you want to blame it on if you're Clemson. But if you don't change things at a core level, you're not going to get different results. So I love when Dabo Swinney's talking his cash and they're winning at a high level. I love when he's talking about the Roy bus and Clemson's out here competing for college football playoffs and making ACC championships and all that. But if you don't change how you go about it, you're not going to get a different destination. Okay, so is Clemson cooked? Clemson, I think, is as cooked as they want to be as it comes to their pivot. If they want to pivot, the world is Clemson's. I think that brand still has a lot of power. I think Dabo Swinney should still have a lot of juice when it comes to how he recruits these guys, walking into a living room with 2 different national title rings. Heck, I'll go ahead and say this. I don't know the exact workings at an NIL level with Clemson, but I have to believe now there's a fan base at Clemson that is thirsty to get back to where they were, competing for national championships. I just think you got to activate it and rethink the entire way you're putting this thing together out there in Clemson, South Carolina. So are they cooked? As cooked as they want to be. As cooked as they want to be. All right, let's wrap this thing up, man. I told y'all the next time the boys are doing a show, it's going to be in Miami, Florida. We'll be at Media Days. We're going to do content, I would imagine, at the Media Hotel is probably going to be the place you'll see us going from when it comes to creating content. But the college football playoff has come to the very last game. You got Miami, you got Indiana. Indiana favored by 8.5 Monday, January 19th, 7:30 Eastern, I believe, ESPN. It's going to be a movie. Let's make some final predictions here before this toe meets leather. To do that now, you already talked to him once during the show. We're going to talk to him again right now. best in the business, alley runner extraordinaire, 2-time All-Sun Belt safety, Caden Smith. You know him as Cato. Cato, man, the people have been clamoring. And when the people are clamoring, it's best to give them what they want. They want your predictions. How are we feeling pre-prediction? And let us know the first one. Let's get started on and popping right away. Give us your first prediction for this game, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, JD, I'm feeling good. The predictions have been going pretty well for me, actually. When we look just back week after week in the playoff, I predicted Indiana winning pretty big, and I'm predicting them doing it again, JD. Oof. I looked very, very hard at the Miami versus Ohio State game. And we talked about it earlier this week in the show. Both of these teams played Ohio State, and Miami played better against Ohio State than Indiana did, quite frankly. And I was trying to convince myself to side with Miami and pick them in this matchup. But I just can't do it, man. They would have to play that level of game that they did against Ohio State against Indiana. That was a mistake-free game. They ran the ball well. And I go back to the moniker I said earlier before the playoff. Going into the playoff, a lot of people picked Ohio State to win that thing. They're a very talented team, best defense in the country. But maybe, just maybe, Indiana is who we thought Ohio State was. And they proved that the last 2 games with 2 dominant performances. And with that in mind, I know the line is at 8.5. But I went to MGM, JD, and you can adjust the line. And before the Oregon game, I regretted not doing this because I had a feeling that a blowout could have been on the table the same way it was against Alabama. I didn't do it against the Tide. I didn't do it against Oregon. Go to BetMGM, though. You can adjust the line a little bit. I'm taking Indiana minus 16.5, JD.
Whoa.
Plus 185.
16.5.
Plus 185. They've done it to everybody else. Why wouldn't they do it to Miami? That's what I keep telling myself. Miami can prove me wrong. They can win this game. They can cover that spread. But it would require them playing the exact same way they did against Ohio State. In that game, they beat the Buckeyes by 10 points. They had a defensive touchdown. They made Julian Sand look like the redshirt freshman he is. That's not Fernando Mendoza, man. This is a well-oiled machine. I think defensively this team it's almost underrated at this point. They're so hard to stop because you just can't decide where you need to put your resources. You can put them into stopping the run game, but the number 1 overall pick and the Heisman Trophy winner is just cutting teams up. He's throwing to leverage. He's decisive. He's letting his guys make plays, and they're making plays. And if you want to stop those guys, cool. We have a 2-headed monster at running back that's making stuff shake. So I could see it happening, man. I could see Miami at home with the crowd behind them maybe doing something special and playing to the level to where at halftime this game's close and they're doing their thing. But I like Indiana to win, obviously. I think that it's hard to find people in the space not picking Indiana to win. And if I do think Indiana's going to win, I think they're going to keep doing what they're doing, which is by kind of blowing teams out. So that's my take there, man. I have Indiana minus 16.5 adjusted. That's plus 185 right now on a BetMGM app.
Bro, I'm nervous when we get to Miami. I'm
going to have to watch my back. I'm going to have to watch my back.
Aren't you that guy that teased it up to 16.5? Aren't you that guy that just said, hey, 16? I mean,
business, guys. Business. I'm sorry.
Business. Shout out Hasbullah. Yeah, man. I'm with you in the sense that an Indiana blowout is 100% on the table. I do not disagree in the slightest. I think that to go in line with this segment of like predictions and takes here before we get on to the 305, was on Crane and Cone today with our buddies Jake Blaine and David. And David Cone asked a really good question. He said, hey, what would it take rushing-wise for Miami to win this game? And it kind of got me thinking. I think if Miami's going to win this game and prove all of us wrong, Cato, I think it takes 170 plus on the ground, which is a lot. It's a lot, but you look back to the A&M game, and Mark Fletcher had over 170 yards by himself on there. He averaged 10 yards a pop, and Miami still only won that game by a touchdown. You're sweating bullets as Marcel Reed and the boys are driving down the field, and they got whatever it was in goal to try and go find a way to force OT. Throws interception. Bishop Fitzgerald's the man in Miami, and it's all well and good, but like understand Miami's going to have to really control this game on the line of scrimmage, which is the no-dust statement of this entire show. They're going to have to control it at a really, I think, borderline elite level to find a way to win this game. And so there's part of it where it's like, yeah, Miami would have to do that to help their own offense, but also just what you said, I don't want Fernando Mendoza on the field. I don't want him cutting up our entire secondary, which he's essentially done to everybody this entire playoff. And going back to the Big Ten title game, he had a phenomenal day against Ohio State. So, like, I think it's got to be a situation where you have over 170 on the ground. And I don't feel great about that if I'm playing the Indian defense. But I will say this. Bo Jackson averaged 5 yards a pop in the Big Ten title game against Indiana. Now, is some of that a bit fugazi because you pop in a 20-yard carry there? You only had 17 carries. I'm not here to say that. I'm just saying I think it's not ridiculous to think that Miami could do that on the ground. So it would take a lot. It would take something we haven't seen just yet, I think, over the course of this year. But the Ohio State game, even the Penn State game for Indiana, I wonder if Miami could take advantage of some of those things and get it done. If they do get it done, $170 is where I'm putting the threshold at for Miami at a rushing yard total to win this game and end the national title drought in the 305.
Here's my take there, JD. I think that what's even more important than how much Miami rushes for is just how much they rush for compared to Indiana. Because you look at the Ohio State game for Miami, they ran for 153 yards, but they held Ohio State to 45 yards on the ground. And that's why they won that game, because that allowed them to win the time of possession. So I think, would they love a Herculean 170, 200-yard rushing performance? Absolutely. They have the big dogs to do it, I think. But can you do that? And if you parlay that with stopping and slowing down what they have going on in Indiana, all of a sudden Miami finds themselves in a favorable position. So I think that is a good number for them to hit. But if they even come below that and then Indiana's a little bit less out of character relative to what they've been doing on the ground, I think that's important too, man. I think when you look at this game, if you think Miami's going to win this game, you can go to BetMGM and Miami's point totals at 20.5. Take that over if you think Miami's going to win that game, and put some money on that Miami money line. If you think Indiana's going to win this game, though, then that's where all of a sudden, like, they're probably going to put up some points. Like, if Miami slows this thing down, can maybe pull Indiana into the deep water and make them really grind out some long drives, keep them on the field, like, that's going to be a big key. But I think the scariest thing for me right now is when you look at Indiana versus Oregon, 11 for 14 on third down. Yeah. Like, they are just a machine, man. Like, even if you get them in a compromised position, they're moving the chains and they're making stuff happen. So, yeah, man, it's scary. This Indiana team, I think if the logo, I think people are finally starting to get over it and the tides flip, but they're a machine, man. I think Kurt Cinetti has done such a good job, and on the biggest stage, I don't see them all of a sudden just losing their fastball and turning into a team we haven't seen, not just the whole season, but a team that's gotten even better in the postseason when it's mattered more.
I mean, the tough thing is they've given you no other logos to look at. Like, you want to look at the Bama logo? Cool, give us that. Oh, the Oregon logo? They do the whole break the O thing. I was like, geez Louise, like they have demanded the attention they've gotten over the course of this playoff, to your point. Kato, I want to get your game script here when it comes to how this whole thing's going to go. You have put money on Indiana minus 16.5, I believe is as long as teased up to, which, I mean, again, that's not crazy for folks at home listening to this. If you've looked at the last two Indiana playoff games, not crazy at all. I think that Indiana wins and covers. I think there is enough emotional juice here. And Mario Cristobal at the crib, the Canes, with their back against the wall in some ways, I think they're one of the largest underdogs in the BCS and playoff era going into a national title game. I think this is a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. Now, I have Indiana winning by 10, but I just think like the potential flow of this thing where maybe Miami controls the football a little bit and maybe Ruben Bain and Mesidor get a little bit going on the line of scrimmage. I think that Miami's they're going to go down swinging here. I think it's a one-score game going into the fourth, and then Indiana kind of straightens their back a little bit, puts the chest out, and finds a way to win and cover. What's your game flow here? Are you just thinking it's just like belt to behind from the jump, and we're sitting in the press box in the third quarter like, well, where do you want to shoot this thing? You want to go and should we shoot the reaction right now? Or you want to wait till we get to, like, how much suspense do we get in this one if you're taking Indiana to win at that potential margin?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think this was most relevant when we talked predictions for the Oregon Texas Tech game, because I said in that one, I think Texas Tech hasn't quite seen a team like Oregon, so I predicted that Oregon was going to cover it in the first quarter, the first half, and in the game. I thought they were going to throw the first punch, and I think that would kind of disarm Texas Tech a little bit, and they'd have to react to that. I'm very curious who's going to throw the first punch in this one. I think both teams kind of have an equal opportunity to do it. I don't think it's going to be a first half blowout. I think I can see this one going into the break pretty close. I think there'll be a little bit of a grudge match. I like the unders for the first and second quarter, and I think once both teams settle in, I think that's when Indiana is going to pull away. So I don't think Miami is – I think, man, if Miami comes out in the first drive and throws the first punch, I think that's probably the most valuable thing for them. If they can find a way to maybe psychologically put Indiana on their heels, maybe a little bit physically as well if they're doing their thing, I could see that happening. But I think it stays close, and I think Indiana eventually slowly but surely pulls away. I don't think it's going to be a thing that we saw in the Peach Bowl with our two eyes, where Indiana just seemed like they were going to win the game from the very first play forward. But
sure, we're thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about Miami playing perfect football. You play perfect football, no penalties, no turnovers, you have a chance to get Indiana. The second you beat yourselves, that's when you cannot beat yourself against Indiana. That's rule number one if you had to make a rule book as far as how to get things done and how to look good and keep yourself in a game against Indiana. But I think they stay in it the whole game. If they throw the first punch, awesome. But I think that the second half, playing 4 quarters against Indiana, I think that's where it starts to settle in a little bit, and they pull away slowly but surely. But I could see it being tied at halftime. I could see it being close at halftime. I could even see Miami potentially taking a first quarter lead. But I think that second half is where we see Indiana do their best work, and that's where they start to pull away.
Anaconda squeeze.
Yes, sir.
See the Hoosiers, man. Okay, well I like where your head's at with that script, man. I think that's very much so in play. Last prediction I want to get from you, brother. And I'm putting you on the spot here, so I'll go ahead and give my 2 cents first. For Miami and for Indiana, assuming either side wins, who is your MVP
I love that you asked
of this game? Now, quick caveat for Indiana. I don't think we have to squint to see Mendoza being the MVP. So let's just go ahead and say he's out of the equation. If it's someone from Indiana that's winning your MVP with the Hoosiers hoisting the national title trophy, who is it? And same thing can be said for Miami. And I'm curious to get your take here. I'll put you on the spot, so I'll just give us a little bit of lead time. If it's Miami, I think it means the defense bossed up big. I think it means they probably got a turnover or two. How about Keontae Scott?
Ooh.
Keontae Scott, I don't know what the odds are on him winning the MVP, let alone Miami winning the national championship. Are probably pretty good with it being 8.5-point spread. Miami wins, it's Keontae Scott. If Indiana gets it done, and it's not Mendoza, I'm saying, okay, well then somebody else had to pop in a big way, enough to where we're saying Mendoza, great game, but somebody else, wins the MVP. Elijah Surratt, dude, has just been a 50-50 maven. Like, every back shoulder I see going his way, it's just like, well, he's probably about to come down with that. The transfer, not once but twice, by way of JMU to Indiana, I think he's your MVP. Mendoza's probably getting it if they win the whole deal, but Surratt, I could see him having a 3-touchdown game. I don't think that's ridiculous. I mean, he caught 2 against Oregon, so if they get it done, not predicting Surratt has 3 touchdowns, Miami fans, but I think Surratt could be your guy that has a day at the office, is the matchup you like, and wins the MVP if the Hoosiers get it done. Cato, those are my takes. Who's bringing home the MVPs for each respective side? Should Miami or Indiana win the national title?
So, JD, I don't know if you knew this, but this national championship game actually has an MVP and a defensive MVP.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I think Indiana wins the game. I think they have to go with their Heisman Trophy, their fearless leader, their guy that's probably going to get the job done more for them, especially because they have 2 running backs that could probably have an equal amount of touches and yards and stuff like that. So I think the engine of the team, the face of the franchise, Fernando Mendoza takes home the MVP. I think if Indiana wins, though, the defensive MVP, I'm putting my money on Aiden Fisher.
Yeah.
JMU guy.
Like that.
I think he's very much the heartbeat of this team. Elijah Hardy actually leads this team in tackles, but he has been, and sacks, I believe. He's like 8 sacks this year. He's a monster.
Everywhere.
He's been a little bit quieter during the playoff, and Aiden Fisher's been a little bit louder. He's been always towards the top or the leading tackler in the first 2 playoff games. He had 9 tackles against Oregon, 7 against Alabama. Had a sack and a forced fumble in the game against Alabama as well. And I feel like after the Pat Coogan deal where they tried to give maybe like an unsung guy, a guy who's not talked about enough, his flowers, I think Aiden Fisher has been that guy all year for them, who we've talked about a little bit here and there, but I feel like within the team, I could see them being very happy to give him this accolade on that kind of stage. So I like that a lot. I think if you're talking about Miami and them winning this game, who their MVP would be, it's tough to say because I think you cannot be one-dimensional against Indiana, right? We saw how far that took Alabama in this game, and they're going to need Carson Beck to make big plays. Like, we had the MVP of the A&M game would probably be Mark Fletcher, and then you go to the Ohio State game. It was a tough one to put a pulse on because there were so many big plays on both sides of the ball. You can go Ruben Bain there. Scott with the pick 6. The offense, Fletcher played it good again. I think if Miami wins this game, The run game is probably working for them, yes, but you would also need too many big plays from Carson Beck. So I'd go Carson Beck. If you think Miami's going to win, I think Carson Beck would be the guy to take home the hardware for the MVP, just because I think even if it is a little bit more of one of those performances we saw against A&M Ohio State where he's managing the game, I think he would be the one moving the chains on third down. He'd be the one having those timely plays, maybe some timely scrambles with his legs to move the ball. And I think we'd say, like, yes, the run game has been there all year for Miami, and that's been a big part of why they won. But the reason they won this game against Indiana is because paired with the run game, Carson Beck played one of his best games where he was completing balls at a high percentage, took good care of the ball, and was timely on third down and maybe even created some touchdowns. So those would be my picks as far as guys taking the hardware to go along with the hardware of that national championship trophy.
Dude, Beck can make himself some money on Monday
Money
night.
on the rise.
Like, if you want to be money on the rise, Carson Beck. Keep saying it, man. I know McShay and Mensch talked about it a little bit on the McShay show for over there at the Ringer. We'll see what happens with Beck in that draft stock, man.
It's interesting.
Ty Simpson being in the mix now in the NFL draft too makes my first round take a little bit less likely, but we'll stand on business. Cato, great stuff as always, man. I'm so fired up for this one. It's gonna be awesome.
Welcome to Miami.
It's going to be a good time, man. Going to be a real good time. We want y'all a part of it. So if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that. Follow on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. We will be in the 305 starting on Friday night. So we'll be there through Tuesday. Y'all, we appreciate you making the show what it is. We get to go on the road and be at these things because y'all watch, you subscribe, you share all those things. So we thank y'all for getting us out into the wonderful reality that will be the national title weekend in Miami. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Cato on the ones and twos. Myself, JD PicKell. We love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.